Welcome to Intentional Academy Live, episode 10. I'm Tony Farrar, joined by Nicole Farrar and Justin Thomas to help you squeeze every last value, every last drop of value out of your education. We're going to show you how to win through the power of intentional learning. And no matter where it is that you are in life, we're going to help you manage your time, get control of your money, and launch your dream career. Today's going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about money. It's been a little while since we've hit that topic on any of the media because it's been lots of startup and things like that, getting ready for the semester. Now we're in the groove. Now it's time to really get control of that bank account again. And basically, we're going to talk about the fact that nobody's too broke to budget. More on that in a minute. And then we've got lots of questions this week, mostly related to being kind of making like big decisions, picking ideas, signing up for extra classes, that kind of stuff.
We'll get to it.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So, literally heard somebody say the words today, I'm too broke to budget.
Isn't that
It's like
the reason?
It's like an oxymoron.
What do you think? Being broke isn't an excuse for not having a play. I think maybe they were coming at it from the idea that they don't have an income at the moment because they're student, and so
How are they going to allocate money if they don't have any money to allocate?
sure.
Makes sense. To a degree.
You don't need an income to make a budget.
Sure.
You might need one to make it actually work if you spend too much money.
Well, I guess
right?
the assumption to what you just said is that you've got some pool of money to pull from. So the only thing that changes is that you have something to augment that pool, but you still need to budget what leaves.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're feeding yourself somehow. Where it's coming from.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that there's this principle of trusted with a little, and you'll be trusted with more. And being broke is not an excuse for not having a plan. In fact, making a plan might just make you not broke anymore.
Well, it's probably the biggest reason to have a plan.
That's what I said. Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought for all the beginners out there that we could literally talk through how we make a monthly budget.
Okay.
I'm good.
And so start with the simplest version of this, which is for somebody that does have a regular income, and then we'll unpack it.
Okay.
It's really simple. You write the amount that you make at the top of the page for the month. That's your income. And then from there, you start listing all of your expenses in priority order. And as you list them, you subtract from that total. And then the idea is that at the bottom of the page, you see a big fat zero because you've decided ahead of time where every penny of your money is going to go.
And I know what everybody is thinking. You don't have the same amount every month. My bills change. That's okay. You can come up with an average.
Yep.
A lot of utility companies will actually put you on a budget plan, and they'll charge you an aggregate average and adjust at the end of the year, either give you money back if you didn't use it, or maybe charge you a little more at the end.
Oh, my bill comes every other month. Okay, that's still fine. You can still average out a monthly amount,
Or decide if you're just going to budget for it in the month it's going to happen. Because this is part 2 of this is new budget every month. When I realized that we could do that, I know that sounds stupid, but when we finally figured that out, everything came unlocked because we no longer had this weird thing where one month the bill's big and the next month the bill's small or anything like that. It's like you don't need an oil change every month, but you do need one some months. And guess what? Thanksgiving always comes in November. And so your bill might be bigger that month. You can start to get an idea and plan ahead for that stuff. But we're talking right now mostly for college students. Typical college student has a very wild income. Maybe they work over breaks, and so they have huge income and then nothing but big expenses. Other people might have like a part-time job where they're bringing in some. And then there are actually the occasional few that you meet who have like full-time jobs and are still maintaining school. And regardless of where that is, here's the interesting thing. Step 1 was list your income at the top of the page. If you don't have one, or if you've got part of one, but you already know it's not going to be enough, take your savings balance, whatever that looks like, and divide it over the next few months until the next big check's going to come. Maybe that's to the summer break. Maybe it's till spring break, wherever it is. Start to map out what life looks like for you to use your savings for what it's for. Now, if you don't have savings and you don't have a job, that means you have no income of money, and you're probably going to have to change that by getting one.
Well,
And
some
there's no other option.
people have fluctuating jobs as well,
Mhm.
tips, things like that,
Mhm.
depending on
Right.
what's going on. And
And in all of those cases, it's the same deal. The idea is to use your savings as a bit of a buffer there to balance it. And so now what you want to do is essentially give yourself a monthly paycheck out of your savings.
Mhm.
And so you're still doing just the same process where you decide your monthly income. And then when we get to the bottom of the page, if you're out before the bills are paid or if you're negative, then it's time to figure out how to earn more money that month. And it gives you an actual target rather than just this vague idea of, oh my God, I'm so broke, I got to go.
So what
Get
if
a
you don't
job.
have a savings and people are living paycheck to paycheck based on whatever they get on tips?
So
So
there's
there's,
I'm getting that echo
I'm
again.
getting that echo again.
I don't know.
Is that just like a temporary glitch
I
here?
don't
or
know. All right, there it goes. So another thing you can do, depending on how long you've worked that job, is you have an understanding of what you typically get, but you can use basically your worst month as your
Mhm.
forecast, and then anything above
Absolutely.
that is just, it's just extra, so you can, start putting it toward your savings and stuff.
And I think that it's really important to remember that if you are living paycheck to paycheck, the goal is to use the budget to get out of that situation. And so, what it looks like is not spending every penny of your current paycheck. Now, that might really be painful because you eating peanut butter and jelly for every meal rather than going out for restaurants or whatever it is that you're spending money on. But
Mhm.
what you need to do is spend less than you're making
Mhm.
so that you can start to build up a buffer. Even $100 for somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck, having that $100 in your savings account already starts to set you up to be in more control.
So for them, it's really important to list the things that aren't going to change, like rent and
Right.
things like that, because those things have to get paid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which are the
The
priorities?
top
So-
priority,
There you go.
the top four
Sure.
things on your list: food, shelter, lights, transportation. Everybody else can go jump in a lake. If you don't have those things, you are out in the cold. You can't get to your job or to your classes.
Mhm.
You've got no food. Life's not great.
And if you don't have enough money to do those things, then you need to get
A job.
another source of income.
Yeah, something needs to happen quick.
Mhm.
And then all the rest of things are essentially icing on the cake, other bills that you want to get paid, other things that you want to do.
Mhm.
And, maybe this is one of those times where we wax nostalgic about how great it was in the good old days when, we were in college and eating ramen and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
you're going to have a nice income. And if you think right now that you should be living like you're halfway through your career, you might need to adjust your expectations a little bit. I know they just put up that fancy new apartment complex with the granite countertops and they rent to students and all this kind of stuff. But do you really need that? Is that really what you want to look back on and remember in college? Because I'll tell you what, I don't remember what color my counters were.
No.
They were covered in other stuff. So I think maybe a quick way to summarize, maybe wrap this up is just to say, even if you have very little, and even if there's very little that changes month to month, when you make a plan, it gets you in control finally and it frees you up and you start to make progress. If you're a college student and you don't have $500 sitting in a savings account that you never have to touch because it's just your emergency fund for that time that you blew your car up or whatever, there's a goal for you. In addition to making your bills, find a way this month to make an extra $500 and put it in a savings account. Go deliver some pizzas, push some grocery carts, whatever it is you got to do. Give yourself that space and then start to practice the life skill of not spending that. Pizza man coming in the door, not an emergency. Kegs empty, not an emergency.
Yes, it is.
Wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan,
Okay.
Dan.
You
I'll
said
back
food was number one.
up.
That's true.
All right.
The
But
monk
maybe-
used to only
but
drink
may-
beer, right?
Sure. Oh, okay. So maybe you're not upgrading from one flavor to another.
That's fair.
We're drinking PBR.
Mhm.
What's wrong with Natty?
Only you.
And that'll be $200 for the endorsement.
Moving on.
I really hated the idea of budgeting until I actually sat down and tried it just once. And even the first time, which, by the way, didn't work at all. We weren't even close on our guesses. Who cares?
Mhm.
All of a sudden, I felt a release of stress that I didn't even know I had. No more guilt when I was whipping out my card to pay for something.
Mhm.
I knew whether or not I could right then and there, and that was a really liberating experience for me, and I just could never go back.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I know what I'm
It
allowed to
almost feels
do.
like you got a raise.
It
Yeah.
does. It does.
Well, because you're not questioning it, and you're saying I'm allowing myself this for food,
Mhm.
and you don't have to question
Yeah,
it.
it took us about 3 months to get
Mhm.
on track, and now it's pretty simple. It only takes about 5 minutes to set it up. So
But when I talk to college students, I think that the hardest part for them is, okay, it's the beginning of the summer, and in 3 months, in addition to being able to pay my rent for the full semester, I gotta cut a tuition check for thousands of dollars. The second they see those numbers, they get a sticker shock. They believe that there is no hope for it, and so the typical response when there's no hope is to not even bother trying.
Or to just worry all about it later, get a bigger loan
Yep.
or go into debt.
Yep.
Because what's the difference between $8,000 and $10,000?
Yep.
Now I don't have to worry about.
Yep.
You know.
Mhm. And so that decision, one day at a time, kind of compounds itself, and I know it put me in a situation where I had more student loans when I graduated than I should have.
Hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
I did finance kegs. I'm sure of it if you really look at it. You know, and that's
Yep.
a hard realization, because I know that had I actually thought for half a minute about what I was doing, I still could have had those things.
Hmm.
You know.
Hmm.
Anyhow, wrap it up there just by saying making a plan actually frees you up. It's not a constriction. It's not a restriction. Budgets, yay! Every college student's favorite topic.
Yeah, I know. You'll feel better though. I mean, after a couple months, like Justin said, it starts to make sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you start realizing where you can easily save money. I mean,
Hmm.
just sort of just shows up.
Or easily spend money and say, "Wow, I did really great this month, and I didn't eat out as much as I budgeted for, so get that extra kick
Yeah.
or whatever."
Yeah.
And we break up stuff into like monthly payments. So we have a quarterly HOA, but we pay. I have a budget line for a quarter of that each month,
Mm.
so I know that that's not
Mhm.
getting spent. And then when I go write
Yeah.
that check the 4th month or the 3rd month, it's easy.
We save a little bit each month, to go climbing and things like that, so it doesn't seem
Or
like
Amazon
a lot.
Prime, we pay that yearly, but I have a monthly line item for it.
Mhm.
Nice.
So
Cool. So
Yep. Starting to just forecast your life, figure it out about how much you need to make per month, all that kind of stuff. It really does, getting the full picture. I've never found somebody who didn't know what was going on, and then once they found out, felt worse. You know what I mean? It's like, if you
Only make things
actually,
better.
right, if you paint the
Yeah.
whole picture of your world, all of a sudden you can start to figure out how you can control it. And
Yeah.
that's a nice place to be.
Mhm.
Speaking of controlling it, let's help people make some good
all right,
decisions today.
All right,
answer some questions.
All right.
go for it.
All right, question 1. I have the opportunity to do a senior thesis involving some really cool stuff that has a lot of far-reaching effects and will complement my department and peers' research, geology, but I'll be paying for it out of pocket, and the additional 3 credits I would be registering for is $1,000 on top of other debt I have. Is it worth it?
Whoa.
Hmm.
Senior thesis. Now I'm hearing, when I see that, I think undergrads. Does everybody think this is an undergrad?
I would say
Well,
yes.
senior, yeah, because
You don't really have a
don't have
year once you're in grad school.
Yeah, right. Okay. So
Yeah.
I hear undergrad
Okay.
doing research. Their peers would be other undergrads?
I would think there would be doing research aiding a grad student or a professor like we
Mhm.
did.
In that department is what they're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
I'm having trouble.
So,
Well-
well, I think here too, he's saying I'm paying for it out of pocket. So that's adding $1,000 onto debt. So they're really not paying for it.
So it looks like he's actually paying to get 3 credits out of it.
Sure.
And so it's like an extra
But I
class.
just $1,000 to pay for these credits. He's stacking it on top of existing debt.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
Which
he
either
already
makes-
has student loans.
Yeah. And either they're a part-time student or they're trying to overload.
Hmm.
you're a part-time
Right.
student and you need an extra $1,000, go get a job. If you're
Sure.
already overloaded, well, now we got a couple of interesting questions, right? 3
Mhm.
credits worth of research in my world, that would be 9 hours, 10 hours minimum per week.
Hmm.
And overload $1,000 worth of extra credits. That means you're taking 18, you're trying to go to what, 21?
I don't know if that's the case as a
I know
senior.
it's just one of those questions I wish I could ask the person some more
Sure. Well, let's
details
just make some
before I
assumptions and
okay,
see what we
so
can do
if
to
I
help.
had to make a whole bunch of assumptions, number
Sure.
1, I spent 7 years on my PhD dissertation, and I didn't change the world, and it was a good one. And so this really cool stuff with far-reaching effects, while I really wanna be supportive of the idea of research because research is awesome
Mm.
and it changed my life, undergrad research is what put me on the path to grad school, deciding to become a professor, the whole thing. Uh, Incredible experience. Nobody uses a single thing that I wrote down during my undergrad research.
Mm.
Justin could probably attest to
Hmm.
that. We were there together.
Well, I guess my other question would be if it has that much far-reaching effects, and he's that interested in it, and they want him to work, why can't he turn that into grad school?
Right.
Why don't you say, well, I'll do
So I
this,
don't
but
know.
I want to do a paper for it, and I want to get a degree for it.
Postponing?
No, as in if he's a senior, finish his senior year and then do what he was going to do in a class and
That's
expand
what
it
I
into a
mean.
grad school. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Postponing it
Mm.
through, not necessarily the
He
final.
might be dealing with somebody like me because I don't take undergrad researchers as volunteers because without the commitment of either credit or a paycheck, they tend to disappear right around midterms.
Hmm.
Mm,
And so if he's dealing with somebody like that where he either has to register or not do it,
sure.
that's a really tough call. Like I said, it unlocked my world, but
Yeah,
I
but if
don't
you were going
want
to give him a recommendation as a professor
right.
now and you were going to take him on as a grad student and that was his project that he was going to get a master's degree for,
Right.
and he decided
I
he
guess the
wasn't going
other
to show
question,
up because he was volunteering, then
sure.
he
The
didn't
other
really want it.
question here would be if he was interested in grad school at all. If you're just trying to
Mhm.
graduate and get a job, I don't know if adding more debt is necessarily the right
I don't know if
thing.
padding
Right.
somebody else's research resume helps you at all.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to be too negative on it, but I would say this: go earn $1,000 and pay for it.
Mhm.
I think the default that the only option is to have more debt is crazy, right? Maybe you already took out the loans for the rest of your school for this semester. Fine, but go make $1,000 and pay for the credits. They'll put you on a semester long payment plan just for that if the rest of the bill's paid. I just, I don't know. It gives me trepidation. How about that?
I personally would not, unless it was going to do what Justin mentioned for grad school, pay extra money just to do work that could potentially
Because you're literally
make a
talking, yeah,
difference.
you're
I
literally talking
mean,
about paying to go to work.
Hmm.
Are you sure you want to do that?
yeah. Well, and if it's not going to suddenly open up a job in a specific company or something like that, or whatever the end goal is after graduation, it's probably not worth it, in my opinion. You know,
I
There we
agree.
have it. That may be the first like no that we've given on this show.
yeah. I mean, I did undergraduate research, and it was really interesting, and
Yeah.
that's where it ended.
Yeah. Well, and I did too.
I
We all
mean,
okay. So
you know,
everybody here on this call did undergrad research. Not one of us paid extra for it.
well, yeah, but that's a side note. I mean,
Well,
even if
I
I
didn't
paid
pay
extra
any
for it,
extra for it, but it did count as one of our electives. So it was it ended up being a required class that we had to have in our major. So we did technically pay for it, but it wasn't an extra class that wasn't required for graduation.
mhm.
Fair.
So,
All right,
all right. Question 2. I
this
know
is kind
this.
of long.
Do what?
I said this is kind of long, so
So I know this is a little late, and all, but bear with me. This is quite a long read. So last year, I applied for a school near me called George Mason. I was waitlisted with a GPA of 3.1 and an SAT score of 1190. I found out I was rejected in March of that year. They do take transfer students from a college called Northern Virginia Community College after a year or two. I really like Mason, and I want to start there because the atmosphere and relatively everything is much better at the other place.
mm,
I know I should have said something earlier, and all and gosh, this is all, but I've
I know.
I've only started to build the courage to speak up about it after some time. If I should apply again, what should I say and how should I do it? I plan to talk to the admissions director as well. Thanks so much. I have the correct answer for this.
Well,
Go
then
for
give
it.
it.
George
Go for it.
Mason, if I'm not mistaken, is a public university in the state of Virginia. If in Virginia, you can go to a participating community college, finish your associate's degree, and if you carry a B GPA, you can transfer your guaranteed admission to any state-funded school.
Hmm.
So, if you really want to go to George Mason, get the classes that are, make up your degree that's not within your field, your gen ed classes out of the way at a cheaper
Mhm.
community college, then transfer.
I'd like to jump onto that too and just say that my experience with community college is that they have some of the best career coaches in the country. They actually give really great advice. I've heard more good advice stories out of those than I have out of four-year schools. And so while you're there, there's an extra resource for you of really helping you figure it out. I hear you on the wanting to start because the atmosphere and blah blah blah. I guess what I'm trying to figure out right now is, are they talking about doing 1 year at the community college and then transferring instead of 2? Like,
It says a year or two.
Yeah.
right? Should I apply again? What should I say and how should I do it? I guess the answer would be you apply again. You can't
don't
increase your
think
high school
they-
GPA. That's not going to happen. You might increase your SAT score or write a better essay.
I don't believe
They
you
can't,
have
like-
to. I believe once you get into the community college, they take that transcript for your entrance.
Okay.
I believe.
Do really well for a semester and reapply, essentially.
Or just take
Interesting.
advantage of it's cheaper. A lot of times, the community classes, or community colleges, the class sizes are smaller, so there's a more potential for interaction with the professor, one-on-one, depending on where you go.
I did not need to go to my university the first year, for sure. I took 19 credits my freshman year, got all of it out of the way because I hadn't declared a major. And I could have taken all of those courses elsewhere. It was like biology, philosophy, English, freshman English.
Your intro math, whatever you had to take.
Oh, good. Yes, the Math Emporium. What was that class called?
I don't know. I didn't have to take it.
I don't even remember. It was terrible. But yeah, it was intro math, intro science, intro, English. Everything was just could have gone anywhere for that, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
for that first year. So
I've also seen I work with an awful lot of students who have done the 2 years at community college and then transferred in. They are doing far better than the students that are in their class who didn't transfer, which is interesting to me. It tells me something about what four-year schools need to do, which is really explore what they're doing the first couple years and do something a little more interesting than just kicking out prereqs. But there's an interesting, I don't know, extra life skills or something that they're typical.
Environment, maybe.
All this is such a generalization.
Yeah.
That if you're in this situation anyway, make the best of it and figure out how to grow from it, and you might end up just doing really even better than you would have. All right, really, this next one is hilarious.
I'm planning to get some noise-canceling headphones to study while I'm on campus. I can't stand having to study with people walking by and making noises and need to get a good set of noise-canceling headphones. Should I get over-the-ear or earbuds that are noise-canceling? I know it's just about preference, but I'm not buying one to look cool or fancy. Just want to get rid of the unnecessary sounds coming outside is what I want, and I want to make sure it performs better at it.
So, first off,
I added this one on purpose.
Because my noise canceling headphones are probably my favorite possession. I love them. I live with them in my head all the time. I've got the earbuds, and I can't tell you how many times I've been glad that I did for silly reasons, like it's 13 degrees outside and I can still wear a hat and my headphones. it's raining and I can wear a hat and an umbrella easier. The wire, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
They're
It's
just more portable. You can pack them up tighter.
yeah, they disappear when I
Mhm.
need them to. So yeah, I'm all about getting the in-ear.
They're more
I
comfortable for
don't-
me. I have the in-ear ones as well, and keeping cups over your head for long periods of time can get kind of annoying.
I wish we were at the point where the tech had caught up for the Bluetooth wireless ones, but I haven't seen any of those that have as many stars as the ones that I've got that are still just wired.
Mhm.
So it's a little inconvenient dealing with the wire. And after 5 years of wearing these things every single day of my life, they're starting to wear out a little bit. But I still like if I had to go to the store today and replace them, I'd get the same pair.
Probably. Yeah,
But I won't tell you what they are unless the company sends me a check.
exactly. And if everybody wants to know, I have the same ones.
What are they on screen right now?
No. These ones are different, and I won't say them either.
And they're messing up your hair.
Exactly.
See, another reason. My hair's very important, and
Well,
over
I
the
just
year,
thought this was an interesting one because I think it's you both have them, and so it's not frivolous. Like it
Mhm.
actually does help.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
got that.
Actually
And I
makes sense.
travel with work, and so
Yeah.
God, you need noise canceling headphones on an airplane.
Yep. And I commute on trains
I
or students on buses, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
don't own my own pair, but I have used the ones that Tony has for when our child would not stop screaming for 3 hours in the car, and they work. So, whatever reason you need them for, we are in full support of that purchase. So,
I think there are tools that people buy that actually do help.
Mhm.
Like you said,
that's what I
frivolous
mean. This
versus
is
not.
exactly like this is actually could be a good
Yep.
choice for you.
Definitely
Understanding your budget.
But it's a gadget that I'm really glad I did, and when I finally destroy this pair, I'm going to just go replace them. Like that'll happen.
All right. So I want to do well in college, which requires a lot of study. I know, but I'll have to work to pay rent through my freshman year, and I'm afraid I may not be able to pay both and prosper. Oh, to both pay and prosper. What was your freshman year like? You folks had to pay rent? Question mark.
Who had to parent?
So
If you had a parent.
people who are in that situation, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest. I guess I can't answer that because I just did the.
Well, we were required to stay on campus our freshman year.
Yeah, so we wrote it in big checks, which is a different experience, right?
Yeah, part
Uh,
of the all-inclusive thing there.
So now I'm just kind of quoting somebody else. This I won't. I'll be honest. This isn't straight from my experience,
Mhm.
but what they said was that the typical student who has a job in the order of 10 to 20 hours a week tends to have better grades because they grow up a little faster and learn how to prioritize and manage their time, and they know that when they're on the clock for work, they're on the clock for work, and when they're on the clock for class, they're on the clock for class. And that level of focus usually leads to people doing better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely guilty of having had too much free time my freshman year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think something to give a little spark of hope in this situation is that your freshman year is going to be a lot of those classes we discussed, which is the intro courses. As long as you don't overload yourself and pace in that regard, and try and find a job that will allow you to multitask. I'm not trying to say necessarily to do bad at your job, but if you're like the library ID person or what have you, there was people at the Math Emporium who used to literally check IDs, and then they were sitting there doing their homework while people were coming in. So there are a couple things you could look for that might allow you to do both and kind of cut back on that stress.
Or other things that actually get you paid to do things that are
for the
value added. Tutoring if you're good at a class, or there are versions of paid undergrad research that you can do.
Yeah, but as a freshman, that may be a little tricky, but keep those kinds of jobs in mind anyway.
Yep. So maybe this is a good place to say that whole thing we just talked about with budgeting, you can do the exact same thing with your time. And I do every week. I do that on a weekly basis every month. And what I've found is that I just block out chunks for what I need to get done, and it works really well. If you're taking full load, here's how you do the math. 3 hours per credit outside of class, every class. So if you're taking a 3-credit class, you should do 9 hours of homework. And so as you're planning out how much time you have to do things like work or sign up for clubs or whatever it is, take all the things that are going on in your life, do the math on how many hours there are in a week. That would be 168. And answer the question of, if you took 20 hours to do work on top of your school, what would that look like? I can tell you this: if you're taking 15 credits and you're just spending 15 hours a week in class, multiply that by 3, that's 45. So it's a 60-hour job just being a student,
That's full time, right?
full-time student. If you add another 20 hours of that, you're working 80 hours a week, and that leaves you 68 plus 20 is 88 hours to sleep and have a life. It's not
You gotta
as,
break that down to make
so it's
sense
not-
in your head daily, but
what I'm saying is it's not quite as bad as it sounds,
sure.
even though it is a very big load. And so depending on how you line things up, it might work really well.
But having that time budget is what's going to allow you to do well in school
Yeah.
and have that job if that's the kind of life that you're going to try and put yourself through. Making sure you commit those hours to your schoolwork as well as your job.
Absolutely.
You have to
Because-
make your school your job also.
Right.
It has to be 2 jobs.
And you don't want to deprioritize, oh, I got to pay bills this month, so I got to go push groceries, and prioritize that over actually learning anything in your classes.
Mhm.
You don't want to turn into this thing where you're not getting the value that you're actually trying to gain from college, because you could do better if you just didn't go.
Mhm.
I just thought of another one. Go be an RA.
Can you be an RA as a freshman?
No,
I don't know.
I
Sophomore?
don't think you can.
Hmm.
Sophomore, yeah,
Okay.
I think eventually, yeah, you can move into it.
I bet freshmen could give tours,
I don't know.
You could look
Like-
into it. Depends.
campus visit tours, that kind of thing.
Go by the
Yeah.
campus career center and say, what's available to me now as a student here.
Correct. I was thinking of things like, literally there's a person that used to have to check you in at the gym, remember?
Mhm.
Like there was a desk, front
Or at
desk.
the dining hall.
The library, cheesesteak guy
Library,
at Owens.
things on campus.
Tony didn't hear me.
The tray
Cheesesteak
slopper.
Owens,
That was
yeah.
me.
No,
I had to
steak guy.
swap trays and then took the lettuce was fresh.
He's saying cheesesteak. I hear you, Justin. I know where you're going.
Oh.
Mr. Cheesesteak guy. All right, next question.
I used to miss the cheesesteaks. Then I moved to the land of cheesesteaks, so I'm kind of good.
I'm a non-traditional student returning after 15 years or so. Back then, nobody had a smartphone. Nobody brought laptops to class. So what apps and software are people using?
Nice.
I like this one because I don't know. I feel like
Where is this?
even if you are of the right age, it's still a good.
Oh yeah.
So there's this
question.
nifty
Oh, yeah.
website where you pretty much can answer a ton of your questions, or at least tell you where to go. It's called Google.
Come on now.
No, I think this is important. It's how are people taking notes? The best,
I'm
like, what's the
I'm
most
just
efficient?
gonna jump on this and say, what are my productivity apps and
Yeah.
things that really work for me. Number one, and all of these people owe us money, by the way, since we're gonna name apps, right? We'll send them bills.
Sure.
Number one for me, Evernote. Absolutely essential to my world. Couple of key reasons for it. Number one is it's everywhere, including on computers that aren't mine, because you can log on to it just from the web. And so like you go to the library and pull up a browser. When you scan documents, and that includes just snapping a picture of it with your phone and putting it in, it actually does the character recognition, so they become searchable notes. You search for keywords that are on a photo of a piece of paper, it'll find them, and that's like handwritten.
Yeah,
It'll-
that's really
It
cool.
reads my handwriting, which is something that I can't do. And the other thing that I really love about it is that it gives you an email address. And if
Okay.
you send an email to that address, it actually shows up as a note. So like if somebody forwards me something, it's like, I might need that document someday, but I don't really need it now. I just forward it to Evernote straight on my email, and it
Okay.
just ends up in a box that if I ever need it, there it is.
And you can take notes in it, obviously,
Well, yeah.
for class
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
nice. It's really nice for that kind of stuff. So that's one for me. On the mobile stuff, I use Notability, which is just an app that lets you actually take like handwritten notes on PDFs and things like that on tablets, and
Mhm.
that one is fantastic. It has this feature where you can record audio, but like tag it with a location. So you could be sitting in class taking notes, and if the professor starts saying something confusing, you hit record, and the audio goes along, like it shows up as a link near where you were taking the notes. And so the notes and the audio are like next. It's really
so you
cool.
can re-listen
Well, and
near the notes that you took.
right.
That's
Hey, this
cool.
is confusing. Come back to this, and you can just hit record, and it'll play the audio back.
Wow, that's
kinda
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Person in the audience recommended an app called Quizlet. So they
Hmm.
got me through exams and professional testing in my career. It's a community, and you can use other people's study guides as well as share your study guides.
Nice.
Ooh,
That's pretty cool.
I like that. I'll have
That
to
would have
check
been
that one out.
useful.
I'll take notes on
I'm
this
gonna
myself.
I'm gonna I'm
Yeah.
gonna recommend something a little lower tech, and it just sort of depends on what's included with your computer or your school offers. If you can't get Microsoft Office, so you can't do Word or PowerPoint or things like that, there is a thing called OpenOffice, and it's completely free.
Hmm.
And that's what I use on my personal computer right now, and it has almost all of the functionality of Office, but cheaper. So if you don't have access to the Microsoft product, there are other options because you're going to need
Awesome. Yeah.
you're going to need some sort of text writing software.
Sure. Take notes somehow.
I would say the number one thing that I have tried every one of these, and it has not been worth the money, are any of the time management productivity apps that try to help you like make to-do lists and get organized and sync with your calendar and sort things by category and context and blah blah blah. They become so complicated and so unwieldy, and they all cost like $60 or like $12 a month or whatever it is. I've never found one that I continued using for more than like 2 months.
And I will never forget, I remember you were using one that you thought was working really well. It did have really good organization, but you're like, I just spent a half an hour every day trying to organize the organization. Like it was,
Yeah.
it was like taking up time just trying to keep up
Right.
with what you had to do to make it make sense.
It's almost
for
like you
you.
needed
Yeah.
a class to learn how to use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Or how to use it well.
keep
Well,
up with it.
what I finally realized
More
is
work.
that the real problem was I had too many things that I said yes to.
Yeah,
I
too
was
many
trying to-
moving parts.
Yeah, just trying to manage things that I had no business trying to manage. You're not a small business, you're a person. And so you don't need
Yeah.
enterprise level software to organize your calendar.
Mhm.
So me personally, I wouldn't spend another dollar on productivity software. I'm kind of done with it at the moment, and I've got a system that I work, and I'd love to teach you how. If you're
Mhm.
curious, send me a DM, and I will talk you through it.
Cool.
You want to hit the last one?
Sure. The last one kind of feeds into it is how can I improve my studying / note-taking skills? I know that when I take notes at work, I use gridded paper, and it helps me space out as
Mm.
I'm writing. It just helps me keep everything organized, and that's a personal preference, and I kind of got it from college and classes when I was doing a lot of math, but it still applies to how I can indent and keep track of things, draw pictures easier.
Mhm.
I actually, this is combined. I redo my notes sometimes, so I'm so focused on making sure I get what I think might be important written down and then just rewriting them and even cutting out some of the fluff
Mhm.
that I just wrote, not sure, kind of getting a broad picture of what the topic actually was and then rewriting it clearly. Sort of helps me remember everything and then makes it clearer to study from.
Mhm.
And so I used to do that a lot. I used to rewrite,
I
not
like
like
that.
everything, but
Just reorganize
Pull
it.
out.
Yeah.
Reorganize it.
And they talk
Go over
they
it.
talk a lot about things like learning styles and how people have different
Sure.
ones and things like that. The newest research on that, though, says that everybody actually has every learning style. It just depends on the topic,
Interesting.
which I thought was really crazy. So there are
That
some
is crazy.
subjects that everyone is more likely to learn well if they write notes by hand.
Huh.
And there are other subjects where it'd be better if they just sat there and listened in class. And
That makes sense.
it's kind of wild to me,
Yeah.
And so I try to think back on that, and it's like, yeah, I was obsessed with making topical outlines um, for some of my liberal arts classes to try and make sense of it all, and it didn't work for me.
Mhm.
And when I switched to something that was a little more narrative, where I like just talked about it with people around me and got
Like
the
a study group, yeah.
then it worked out, and I didn't really need much in the terms of notes specifically.
Mhm.
But then, my engineering class, the only way it makes sense to me is to read the textbook
Writing.
and make an outline. And
Yeah.
then when I went to class, all I did was write down the examples that the professor did that weren't in the book.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it, I did better
Yeah.
reading it ahead of time, hearing the professor say it, and then going back to the notes I'd already taken.
Yeah. It's funny that you should say that now. I'm thinking back of other studying styles. Something else, like you said, for liberal art type courses, like oral communications and things I've taken, I always did really well teaching it to someone else.
Hmm. Mhm.
And not necessarily that they needed it to be taught, but that's the form of studying we did. Like
Mhm.
I would have to explain it to somebody else, and then
That's
they would
cool.
explain it to me. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying, like a
Yeah.
different
Yeah. And
topic to learn in a different
right,
way.
because now what
Yeah.
you're doing is you're actually sorting it in the way that makes sense to you so well that you can explain that organization to somebody else.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that kind of thing's really important. One thing I will say is that I don't want to criticize my colleagues, so I won't talk about broad generalities here. Many,
Okay.
many people teach the way they were taught without really giving much thought to
If it's the best
if it's the
way.
best way.
Mhm.
And the result of that is that a lot of students I see scribbling down notes are actually distracting themselves. You're so busy trying to write everything down, you're not actually processing any of it. And
You're not absorbing it, you're just
something that's
reiterating.
helped me in the more recent years anyway is actually trying to force myself to take less notes so that the notes that I do take are the real highlights. Because you go back to this huge thick notebook at the end of the semester to study and everything looks equally important
Sure.
when it
It's not.
wasn't,
You're
you
just
know?
literally copying what they've said. I actually struggled with that a lot because I was always nervous that I was going to miss whatever was important. And then I remember reading through my notes thinking, okay, why did I write that down? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, one of
literally.
the audience members, I think they pretty much summed it up. You have to do some self-reflection and discover how you learn best. So, what do you remember the
Yep.
most from your classes and why? And then figure out how that information got stuck in your head, and then you start from
Mhm.
there.
Right.
Really good advice.
And so if I had to summarize how I give that same advice,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's amazing. Is take an assignment that you just got feedback on, whether it was an exam or a homework assignment, whatever it was,
Mhm.
and write down the instructions to repeat what you did to get ready for it. What was your process? Did you go to
Mhm.
the library? Did you put your noise canceling headphones on? Did you
Yeah.
watch the video and then take notes? And what was write down step by step what you did, and then look at the feedback you got on the assignment or the exam
Mhm.
and ask what of those steps you followed most likely
Contributed.
resulted in
Mhm.
the particular piece of feedback you got, and work first on fixing that part of the process. You know, when successful people, athletes, all this kind of stuff, they're always focused on the process, not the outcome. And
Mhm.
so I really do like to come back to that a lot, which is
Yeah.
just to focus on the process you followed, observe the outcome, and use it as a guide to adjust the process.
Mhm.
Because you can't manage your grade. You can't manage how well you do on an exam. You can
Mhm.
manage how well you prepare for an exam. And there's a distinction there that
Mhm.
puts you back in control.
And you as a professor are doing something that not a lot of professors do. You're actually offering your students either they can watch videos to learn the concept, or they can do an interactive, almost tutorial where they are, providing input as they're being given information. So it kind of feeds both types of learners, which not a lot of professors do that or even capable to do that, depending on the type of information. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, and, so yeah, that's experimental, but I think what's happening is thanks to things like the internet, we can finally present the information in the style that works for everyone. We can have 4 different versions of our class happening simultaneously
Mm-hmm.
for the 4 different learning styles and pick the one that works for you.
Yep.
And so I dream of a day, right? And
Yep.
30 years from now, that's what it'll look like, but we're on our way. Maybe
Yep.
it won't be 30 years. Maybe the best thing to say is just keep trying.
Iteration, you'll figure it out.
Yep. Yep.
Wow, man, this turned out to be a pretty great conversation, y'all. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being here. If you're watching this, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying through the whole thing.
Thanks to the
comments,
audience.
all that.
Yeah, the audience is helping a lot.
Yeah. You guys are awesome, and you're why we're here. You're what we're doing this for. And so, if there's anything we can do, specific questions that you have, things like that, we're in the business of trying to help you. And so, reach out. Don't ask it in public. Send me a DM. I won't even, whatever. We can answer your question. That's what we're here for. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. If I could ask one more thing, it would be click all the buttons, like, share, comment, that kind of stuff. Not only does it help people in your network who might benefit from this, but it causes us to filter higher up on notification pages and all that kind of stuff. And we are trying to help anybody that we can who needs this. Come hang out with us on social. Turn this into a conversation instead of a speech. Most importantly, go do something on purpose. Have a great night.
Good night.